All right, good morning. Welcome in on Monday, November 24th, 10 a.m. For another episode of Baseball and Coffee. No guests today. Thanksgiving week, a little tricky of a week, as you can imagine. A lot of people going away, a lot of people not at home, a lot of people got a lot of stuff going on. But that's cool. We'll plow through the rest of the divisional needs these next few days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week, and then we'll pick back up with somebody probably on Monday. Maybe a little earlier, but we'll just go ahead and have to see. So hope everybody's doing good. We will definitely explore this Nemo for Semyon swap in a minute. Let me see if my comments are working. Yep, they are working from last time. All right, good. All right. Let me just make sure that the chat is flowing. It is. Okay, good morning, everybody. All right, let's flip over here. And let's get into it a little bit before we hit the NL Central. First, we'll do our quick winter ball check-in. I mean, Aguilas in the Dominican, 20-4. That's just a baseball record you don't see very often. 11-1 at home in Santiago, which is pretty amazing. And other than that, it's kind of a hodgepodge. That's kind of how it goes. I was telling my friend Justin Courtney, who we had on the show on Baseball After Dark at some point during the postseason, I believe, or towards the end of the regular season, because he started his winter league season with the Toros off really well. I think it's like 9 scoreless innings. So I said maybe I would watch his start on the stream, but it's almost too far ago, too long ago now. It's 5, 6, 7 days away. So we'll skip all that, and we'll just go check in on the scores last night just to see what was if anything curious happened. Let's see here. Toros, Gigantes, Licey, Estrellas. This might have been a fun game. Let's check out the box. All right, who pitched first of all? Ooh, the legend, Cesar Valdez, Mr. Changeup Man. This guy's a legend. Severino, Jimenez, Murata. On the other side, Romero. Which Romero is this? Any Romero. Lefty throwing cheese. All right, let's look at the lineups. We got a home run by Campusano, Stevenson, Adames, Rojas, Lugo, De La Cruz, Bonifacio. What else we got here? Raimel Tapia, Robinson Cano. All right, let's go to the play-by-play of this and let's see what we got. We'll go back to the first inning and see how this game kind of progressed just for fun, and then we'll go in and get into the trade talks. And we'll get into the NL Central. A lot of doubles. Ooh, Willeen Rosario, my former teammate, the baby bull from the Rockies back in the day, facing Senor Cambio, Mr. Cesar Valdez, in San Pedro, hitting a changeup down the line. Very cool. The baby bull. He was a beast back in the day. All right, what else we got here? Michael De La Cruz off of Enny Romero. Ooh, smashed in the gap. This was a cool ballpark to play in San Pedro de Macorís. Like, it's kind of hard to see on the video, but back here, like if you look back here, there's a bunch of houses like right beyond the fence, and there was these little kids that were all on top of this roof, which it's hard for me to highlight, but there's a roof above the word Viva. There was a whole bunch of kids out there during BP that I was throwing balls to one day. I don't know, pretty cool ballpark right in the middle of the town. There's a guy who's on the microphone literally the whole game, firing up the crowd and talking shit about the other team, and just kind of making his commentary in Spanish. And it's electric. I've never seen anything like it. So I thought I would put you in on that. Okay, here is the Luis Campusano home run. So this is a guy that I believe the Padres have to kind of make a decision on. I think he's out of options. He's been there a while. Ooh, goes and gets a low pitch. Oh, Jeffrey Yon. That's the guy who does those big celebrations. So seeing him get clipped is a little odd because he's used to being jumping around. This pitch is pretty low. It's a little bit of an NL West matchup, as Jeffrey Yon had been on the Rockies for a little bit. Obviously, Campusano on the Padres, so pretty cool there. Also, note the finger point up in the air. Yep, it is up in the air. It's just over the fence. And Let's watch this one. Another double by Michael De La Cruz, and then there's one more RBI. It's Cano. So we'll watch Cano hit for a second, which I saw he's over 4,000 career hits now, which is pretty cool. Wow, broken bat, inside out, Johnson the other way. And Licey, if you guys aren't familiar with Dominican baseball, Licey is basically the Yankees in Dominican. They're the biggest team in Santo Domingo. Escogido is also in the same ballpark, the Quisqueya, but Licey is kind of the Yankees, whereas I would say, hold on, I would say Aguilas is kind of like, I guess, the Dodgers or the Red Sox, like the other big team. So anyway, it's pretty cool. All right, Robinson Cano. He's going to get an RBI here, left on left. Still doing it. Oh, it's an infield hit. Didn't see that coming. Play at the plate. That was hopeless. That's a walk-off. Walk-off winner. Cano with a walk-off jam shot on the infield. Anyway. I don't know. I kind of miss it down there. These games are very fun, very cool. Look at Cano with these green J's on to match. So sick. He gets totally sawed off, but there's just no play to be made. All right, that's our Dominican League run around. And then now we can get started on some Major League topics. All right. Because they are playing ball all winter long. It's one of the more interesting things that happens that I think in America, a lot of people are like, oh, baseball's kind of over. Baseball's never over. There's always some baseball going on. You got Baseball United, you got this, you got Venezuela, you got Puerto Rico, you got a whole bunch of places. Okay, all right. So before we do NL Central today, let's get into this trade. Semien and Nimmo. I mentioned a little bit the other day during the Mets talk that I thought this was a interesting thing to being floated out there about Nims. Very proud Met. I've said that from the beginning. I think he's an all-time Met. Played a long time there. Let's go to his reference. And it's an interesting move for both sides. It really is. If you told me this before the offseason, I would have been stunned. Now that we saw it the other day, I'm less stunned because there was smoke. But still, it's surprising just because he's been such a long-term Met. All right, here's the numbers on Nimmo. He debuted in 2016. For the first, through 2021, his calling card was on base percentage. Then, as 22 came around, he started to morph into a guy who was looking to do a little bit more damage. His career high in home runs was 17 in 2018. Prior to that, and then since then, he's been much more of a power threat. 16 and 22, then 24, 25, and 27 last year. It has been a trade-off. Slugging has gone up somewhat, and on base has come down. It's been an interesting profile. He's a guy who, very smart player, definitely engineered his game to be more valuable. And you can see in the WAR category, which led to him getting paid, those years, they did manifest themselves in higher WAR numbers. 3.5 WAR in 21, 5 in 22, which was his free agent year, 4 in 23, and then the last 2 years, he's in the 2s to close to the 3s. But if you look at his profile beforehand, when it was all on base percentage, outside of 2018, he's basically a 1 and change WAR player. So I don't know. It's interesting. As a winning operation, I like Nimmo in an on base role, and I'm wondering how Texas is going to utilize him, where they're going to put him in the lineup, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, there's some question marks for both of these guys going back, back and forth. There's nobody else in the chat. I see nothing in the chat. Just me. Is the chat disabled? I don't really know. You would think more people would be in the chat. So something's telling me something weird's going on with my chat. Let me try to reload this page, maybe. See if that'll help. There we go. Chat's back. There we go. All right, I just had to do a little reload. Sorry, you guys. Yeah, I had to refresh on my end. Good call, Nick. So I missed a lot of your messages. I see that you guys are here. And I'm just starting to get into this trade a little bit and just think about it a little bit. Sorry, you guys. All right, so that's the totals for Nimmo. I mean, look, he played in 1,066 games for the Mets. That's a lot. That's going to be up there all time. So no matter what, from here on out, he was a great Met. It's part of why it's tough for fans. But I can see a little bit, if you squint your eyes, maybe what David's trying to do here, what Stern's trying to do here. I think it's fairly obvious. Now, a couple things to look at with Nimmo specifically. Metrically, he's gotten a lot better at swinging hard, generating power. I think the biggest fear is the decline in sprint speed and fielding. Now, I have to believe a lot of this has something to do with the left foot. Something to do with the left foot, with the whatever it's the left or the right, the plantar fasciitis. Now, I've had plantar fasciitis before. It's a miserable injury. Thank God I'm a pitcher, because you got to stand out there in the outfield, and all of a sudden you got to get going with a bad foot. It's not fun, not comfortable at all. Now, do I think that contributed maybe to a little bit of his defensive woes last year? I'm going to say, yeah, probably. I mean, he was grinding through it for a few months. That plantar fasciitis is no joke. So, I tend to look at some of his metrics that came up last year with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I think that he can maybe get his foot fixed, and move forward. Like, you look at his speed throughout the years. This is the first time that he dropped under 50th percentile in speed. He had been in 66th and 68th in 23 and 24, and then now coming out of 25, he drops below league average. So if you're just checking metrics and you're just looking at stats on the internet, you're going to say, oh man, he's got a speed drop, and then that accompanied with an outs above average drop. But I personally believe that the foot had a lot to do with that, and I think maybe that's what Texas is banking on. So I'm just saying, if you're looking at Nim's profile, without having any more context, you could definitely see some drop off here, and so that would make a lot of sense. Now, a couple things that have gone in a good direction over the last few years: exit velocity. So strength-wise, he's fine. Hard hit percentage is good. So it's like the speed's dropping, but the power's raising. The swing's gotten a little better. It's been a little more consistent in terms of swing length and squared up rate. It's been fine. Ultimately, it comes down to a contract for contract scenario. Nimmo's under 5-year contract still, and Semien under 3. All right, now let's go look at Marcus for a second. Marcus coming over from Texas. Him and Seager signed at the same time, that big deal. And it's been an interesting ride for Marcus in Texas. The batting has been a little inconsistent, but the fielding has improved a ton. And the fielding, I think, is kind of what Stearns is looking at, in addition to the entire market. When you're looking at this from a Mets perspective, they're trying to really improve their team, right? It was a disappointing team last year. They have a lot of assets on the squad. Nimmo was included in that group. And then you kind of look at the free agent market and where you can upgrade. They have a little bit of a logjam in the middle infield, but it's not anything. That any of those guys are seizing the job right now at second base, and Acuna or Beatty or any of those guys. I think that's more of a third base conversation with Mauricio Vientos and Beatty. I think second base, defense, it'd be great for them to get this upgrade, and that's what they're looking at with Semien. He used to be a butcher in the infield back in the day. Ron Washington fixed him, and he's been awesome ever since. Look at his outs above average the last 5 seasons: 87th percentile, 94th, 99th, 100th, and 92nd. So Stearns is thinking to himself, we need to get better on defense. He said it publicly from the moment the season ended, and this is a big step in that direction. And now, because there's more dudes available on the outfield market that can maybe replace Nimmo's production in left field, or they can maybe upgrade there, that's probably what they're thinking. Now, also, in terms of Semien's decline, it's important to note, because you go ahead and look at some of his metrics, like bat speed, 8th percentile, and you're like, holy shit, is he falling off the cliff? But then you go look at him career-wise, and the bat speed has never been there, even in good years. 13th percentile bat speed in 2023, and he put up a good year. I don't think it's ever been really part of his game. Even hard hit percentage, you go way back his whole career. I mean, even in the year he hit the 40 pumps for the Blue Jays in 21, he only had 52nd percentile hard hit. So it's been a pretty normal. I don't see anything in here that super fell off a cliff. This is kind of who he's always been. It's more of a skill-based approach. Can he put barrel on the ball and hit the ball pull side in the air often enough to do damage? Other than that, he's a situational hitter. He's a great leader. Now they're bringing another veteran into the clubhouse. So in a way, this shakes up the clubhouse vibe, which maybe it needed shaking up. I don't know. I wasn't there last year, obviously. But basically, from a contract standpoint, the Mets get out of the 5 years of Nimmo and they get into the 3 years of Semien. So both players who are seemingly headed into their, their final, stage of their careers, the last 5, 6 years, whatever it may be. And you're only under the gun for 3 years of Semien versus the 5 of Nimmo. I know you paid the money, but I think that's a little bit of the calculus here. Is we'll go ahead and upgrade the outfield. We have Benj coming, and I think this was the time to pull the trigger. It's definitely tough from a fandom standpoint. I mean, look, even from the Rangers side, Semien won the World Series with the Rangers, so he had a big home run, I think, in Game 5 to put them up 5-0 on their way to winning that series. He's had big moments with the Rangers. He's a great ambassador for the team, and so was Brandon. So that's what's interesting about this. It's like two class act guys going opposite directions. They both had to waive their no trade clause, which I thought was interesting on both ends. Texas has been doing a whole bunch of weird stuff. They DFA'd. They non-tendered Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, and a bunch of other dudes. I'm curious to go to their roster resource for a second because we already went over the Mets a little bit, but we haven't really looked at Texas. They're coming up, I think, on Wednesday. But just as a quick moment here, where are they? Let me just see. Like, are they particularly right-handed? So it'll be Nimmo, Langford, Seager, Peterson, Berger, Carter, Young, Smith, Higashioka. Yeah, I think they're comfortable with that lineup. I think they like that. They're technically saving about $5 million a year doing this, so they have more room. I know they took on more years of Nimmo. But as I mentioned, there's plenty of reason to think that he can still be productive going forward. I do think the plantar fasciitis zapped him quite a bit. But yeah, there definitely is a mandate from Texas to do something with the payroll. I know this is it's a little bit of a half measure, so maybe there's more moves to come. But I do find it interesting that they were that desperate to gain about $5 million more of wiggle room per year in this deal. All right, what do we got here in the chat? Seems like a lot of people have stuff going on in the chat here. Semien's fielding is 100% the reason for the trade. I think Stearns had plans to trade Acuna, Jet Williams, and Semien as a Gold Glover. I think it's a good move for both sides. So you just mentioned some of the guys that could be moved. Acuna, Jet Williams, that's all. Vientos, Mauricio. I think that because of this logjam, there's almost guaranteed for another move to be made, a second move to be made. I don't know what type of value Luis Angel Acuna would have at this point. But I could definitely see it. Let me go to the Mets for a sec. So at the moment, yeah, and this is by roster construction, by lineup construction, I kind of like Semien in between Frankie and Soto in a way. I do, and I think getting him more pitches to hit in front of Soto is a good thing. So if you're looking for upside in the Semien department, just strictly in the lineup makes a lot of sense. Anyway, so as for the logjam, Mauricio, Beatty, Vientos, Acuna are all dudes that they have to figure out kind of who they value, who they don't value, and how they're going to all slot in, and who has value out in the market they can go grab something else for. So that's what I think now. Is I think you're going to go ahead and you're going to see the Mets make a secondary move here. For the to address the outfield. They might utilize some of their surplus guys in the infield. They might not, but we're going to see. All right, let's see who's available in the outfield real quick and who makes. Oh, I already have that list up. Okay, so Bellinger, who now I think suddenly is even a better fit for the Mets because now if they go ahead and get something worked out quickly with Bellinger, then that's like insurance, and they can use that in their negotiation against Pete. Not that that's a fun tactic. But Belly can also slide over to first very easily. And I think he fits great. He would fit great in left field, and he would fit this lineup very well. Tucker's the big swing. I don't know if they're willing to go for another superstar right now. Maybe they are. Maybe that's what this is about, clearing out room for Tucker. And then you're looking at a Soto, Tucker middle of the order. I think you probably need a righty to balance that out. There's also some other guys potentially available on trades, which is being noticed here. Tatis, also Buxton. So, you take a look at it. I mean, shit, there's a lot of options here. Stephen Kwan's another potential trade piece. I think you'd have to give up a lot for Kwan, probably. Really, for any of them. Buxton, Tatis, but, they have 3 potential guys to take a swing at if they want to do that. But I do think a little bit just looking at the market and the infielders, I don't think Stearns was going to be big on Bichette, pretty much declining on defense, so they weren't going to probably pursue him at second base. So I think it's a little bit easier to make up for it in the outfield. I mean, you look at this list of names in the outfield, and I know a lot of these guys aren't like top of the scale exciting, but every one of these players is capable of putting together a good season. O'Hearn, Yastrzemski, Mullins, Hayes, and Duhar, Refsnyder, even Marte. I know he's old, but Kepler, Castro, Pham, Winker. I don't think McCutcheon will be back. Kutch was a Met for a hot second, I believe. Kike, Margot. I mean, there's like tons of guys with defensive profiles. I still think they're going to shoot, obviously, towards the top of this because that's, they have no reason not to. They have plenty of money to spend. But you can see there's a lot more opportunity to improve your team, whether it's through a platoon or whether it's, going big on one of these guys. One way or another, I think they feel pretty good about being able to find a really good, situation in the outfield. Let me just see the infielders for a second, particularly the middle infielders and the third baseman, just non-first base types. So, yeah, at second base, you were looking at probably a Jorge Polanco. You can see it falls off pretty quick. I'm sure Arise is not a possibility. He doesn't play any defense. It falls off really fast looking at this middle infield defender. So I get what Stearns was doing, and in a way, I think it makes a lot of sense. They get out of the 5 years, they get into the 3-year situation that'll expire a lot quicker in terms of how it fits the roster. I think this gives them flexibility to go after something in the outfield and really go ahead and uptick. I'm curious what you guys think. I know it's tough to live without Nimmo, and I've been thinking about it a lot. This is a guy who was all in on the Mets. Moved to Florida, right by the facility. Moved his family down there. From Wyoming, went to the big city, high school draft pick. He grew up so much during his time with the Mets, became one of the better Mets of all time. So I don't know, just very surprising. I understand it a little bit from the business side. I do get the 3 years versus the 5, the flexibility that this provides, that they can go ahead and attack the rest of this offseason in a really aggressive way, and I like that. But it is sad a little bit because, I just think of the image of Nimmo crying after we beat the Phillies in 24, which was the furthest he had been to that point, and just how much it meant to him individually. And, baseball's an emotional game. It's a romantic game, and Brandon was a big part of that for Mets fans for the last few years. So, from the Met perspective, obviously, since I know a little bit more about that, it'll never be the same. Maybe it'll be better. That's, I guess, the hope. And right now, I think it's impossible to totally judge this at the moment of sale. I think we have to judge it a little bit later. Got some stuff in the chat. I thought Nimmo would be a lifelong Mets player. Sad he left, but as a fan, I got nothing but love for him. He played with his heart on his sleeve, and he did. Brandon's locked in. He is. Really hard worker. His level of care is top tier. The Rangers are getting a good one. They're getting a good one for sure in terms of attitude and everything like that. And it's a fresh start for him, and we'll see. We'll see what he can do. Literally, he's happy. Literally said he's happy the jersey would not be coming off when he signed the extension. Yeah, I mean, look, he was definitely planning on being here for the long haul. I think both sides were, and things changed. That's life. But, it started off with the best possible intentions for sure. I think trading Nimmo makes it more likely the Mets bring back Pete with the wide open DH, and I think that's a huge positive. I love Nimmo, but I think the team can do better without him. That's the other argument. It's the sum of all the parts. Baseball is not a sport where the one player necessarily means everything. I mean, look, the Mets added Soto, and that didn't alone push them up any higher. If this is basketball, of course, but it's baseball, so it's more of the sum of the parts. If this move allows you to do other moves that make the club better, then yeah, it was probably a move worth making. And just ripping the Band-Aid off rather than trying to wait until he declines more or plays better. And then, now you have the opposite problem. So, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting for sure. Wonder what convinced him to waive the no trade clause. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mentioned it the other day. Brandon's like one of the nicest, sweetest individuals in the world, but anytime you feel a feeling of a team not wanting you there anymore, um, it's like anything else in life. You don't want to be someplace where you're not necessarily wanted or valued anymore. And I think it's hard not to take that personal at times. And then I think once he gets out of the emotional side of it, he thinks a little bit like, okay, like there's no state tax in Texas. Jake's over there. We have people, like we're not alone. This is a new chapter, a new experience. And I get it. Like you can get excited for that. So for me, it makes sense. For me, it makes sense. Oh, here's a random question. Is Goodfellas a Christmas movie? Well, it's in my top 2 movies of all time. There is some Christmas action in it, but I wouldn't call it quite a Christmas movie. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? All right, we'll keep it moving. People are looking at this as a one-for-one swap, which it's not really. It opens up other things for the Mets. I would agree with that, mainly because of the way that pieces have to move around the board positionally. Obviously, financially, in a way, the Mets kind of win it because they pay a little more now, but they're out from under it a little quicker. So to me, it's a little bit interesting. And then Spectre says, you know who this trade is good for? Wyatt Langford, because now Wyatt Langford can go play somewhere else. So the cushion of Jake being in Texas definitely helped. Report said he called Jake Saturday before the trade. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, these two are very close. They've had lockers right next to each other for like 5 or 6 years of their career. Families are close. So it makes sense. It always helps when you know somebody in a place that you're going. I mean, listen, I only got traded one time. But I remember when I signed with the Yankees, it definitely helped for me a little bit that LeMahieu was going over there with me because it was somebody I was close with, so we could kind of experience the new situation together. So that's part of it too. Do you think they trade McNeil now or keep him as a utility guy? Well, look, the smoke is still there. Like they've been talking about McNeil on the move for a while. So based off of the way this last stuff was just reported, I'm going to go ahead and guess McNeil's goner. I don't see them playing him every day in left field. I see him as probably off the roster, off the team somehow, some way. I think Beatty is probably penciled in at third base at the moment, and they're going to look to really upgrade this left field spot. I'd be curious how big they go. Can you go Tucker in this spot? It makes them very left-handed, obviously without McNeil. If you get Pete back, if you get Pete and Tucker, right? Now you go Pete at first, Tucker in left, or maybe move Soto to left, play Tucker in right. I don't know, but he's in a corner outfield spot. Then you can go switch, righty, lefty, all with stars for the first 5 guys. And then Vientos would be in after that if he didn't get traded already. And then additionally, there could be more. Like they could go get more pitching with some of this too. So I don't know. I think this is there's more to come. This is let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what David does. He's very smart. He's not afraid, obviously, to pull the trigger on stuff, and so I think he's got a lot more planned. And look, when we looked at the Mets, we said, "Man, this is a tough offseason to land the plane with." I actually would not want this job at this moment. It's a lot of tough choices, both emotional and analytical, that are tricky to figure out. A lot of samples that it's hard to draw from and figure out conclusions. And as we mentioned, it's the starting pitching that really needs some of the biggest help, as well. As this is not bad on paper, but you have a lot of question marks with some of these guys, and you have the other guys beyond. I'd like to see them get a top guy, but anyway, we're just going to have to see, and maybe we'll move on from this in a minute. And let's get back in the chat for a minute, and then we'll get started on the NL Central. To the Met fans who've been talking about bringing DeGrom back, the fact that Nimmo decided to waive his NTC after talking to DeGrom solidifies what I said. Yeah, and look, I think it was misconstrued a little bit, some of the DeGrom stuff I said the other day. Like, I just said, look, all things being equal, I think he was perfectly fine, perfectly happy being somewhere else that's out of the spotlight. It's just not his personality. I think he loved being a Met. I think he'll always be a great Met. I mean, look, when I was talking to him the year before free agency, he felt like Steve was the most likely guy to pay the most money, and that nobody else would probably come close. And that's why he was like, I'm probably going to be here. Like, he was looking at houses near where I live and where other people's live, and they were figuring out their New York life. Like, they were going to be okay with that. But at the same time, he made it clear from the beginning, like, if all things were being equal, yeah, he'd probably like to be somewhere a little less hectic. That's just the personality he has, and I think that's everybody's prerogative. That's the whole point of free agency, is to go be where you want to be. Like, I wanted to be in New York, so I went straight to New York when I was a free agent, and other people have other ideas, and that's life. But I think that, yeah, he wasn't probably going to waive his no trade clause. I think he's happy where he is. He's going to pitch out his days, and then we'll see if he even plays beyond this contract, which will be interesting. Now he's got his buddy there, though. That kind of helps a little bit. Why is the nickname not popping up again? I don't know what that means. What does Steve Cohen need to do to make the Mets successful long term? He's got the income, but other than that, what should he invest in? Minor league. Look, he's doing a great job. He is investing in minor league training facilities, coaching. They're going to redo the entire facility down there. They've built the lab. They have some of the best player development coaches there are. He spent money taking on dead money to get prospects. He hired the best free agent president of baseball ops that has come around in a long time, and David Stern. So he's done a lot of things right. He hasn't gotten anything to show for it in terms of championships yet, but I think he just has to stay the course, continue to be him, and he'll get everything that he wants over time. It's baseball, so it's really hard. It's not, you could have the best team, the most payroll, and you can still not win. And that there's been disappointment there, but I think from an ownership standpoint, he's done a pretty good job overall, personally. And only the Clouds is saying, I'd be happy with no income tax as well. Yeah, and that's a big part of the Texas thing too. I mean, I've never had the luxury of thinking about anything like that. I've always been over here, but I feel like, yeah, a lot of guys, that's a big factor, and it is. It saves you 11% on your money, right? If you're not playing in New York anymore, and you're playing in a zero tax place. So that's definitely a factor. All right, what is the user? I can't say all those numbers. Should go with Belly and Bader and play the hard game with Pete's contract. Bader could be the stopgap for whatever center field prospect name they were waiting for. I do think Bader's looking at a multi-year deal right now. He had a great season last year. I think he would love to be back with the Metros, so it could be a good fit. They did just bring Tyrone back, so Tyrone's their defensive center fielder at the moment. I don't know. I could see Bader being a fit, but Bader wants to play every day. He doesn't want to platoon at all. I think that's his number one priority in free agency, so we'll see. Belly, I think, is a great fit, though. I agree with that totally. All right, what else we got? DeGrom is the simple man. I can respect that. Yes, that's Jake. He doesn't mean any hard feelings, I don't think. I think he's great. Top 5 Christmas movies. I'm gonna have to ruminate on that in a minute, Spectre. I'm gonna have to ruminate on that in a Spectre. Mets got a top 5 minors. I think the future is bright. Issues play the Dodgers every year. Yeah, look, the playoffs is going to be tough. You're going to have to get over the hump. But this is the team that should be in the postseason every year. They have the resources. They have the base. They have the core. Let's see what they do. Let's see what they do this offseason. It's going to be very important. It's going to be very important. So we'll see. Belly is a great fit. I'm worried about his metrics outside of Yankee Stadium. I do think... Let's take a quick look at Cody. We haven't really done a full dive in on Cody yet, so let's take a quick little look at Bellinger. It's so funny because he's such a good baseball player, right? Like beforehand, when he was with the Dodgers, he was a power guy. Now he's kind of more of a. I guess he's in the middle of the road. He did it 29 home runs, to Maya's point, Yankee Stadium, short porch, but he's also a big-time two-strike approach guy. 272 average is way above the league average now. So he's doing a little bit of everything on offense. I love his approach on offense. It's a very mature approach. He kind of plays situational baseball, and then he's also providing incredible defense. Also, the sprint speed, still really good. So when you're looking at Bellinger, there's a lot to love. I think the shoulder injury he had is what really was this 21 and 22. The 6 and the 10, that's the shoulder injury. And then he bounced back with the Cubs. And yeah, I think ex-Woba wasn't as kind to him in 24, but I'm still a big believer in him. The K percentage has gotten a lot better. The whiff percentage has cleaned up. The speed's still hanging on in a good spot. The outs above average are great. The arm strength is great. I do think he could benefit from a little bit of a shorter swing, but it's hard to argue with what he's got going on. He's just simply not who he was at the very beginning of his career, when he was hitting nukes for the Dodgers. So we think of him in that way in his MVP form, 2019 form, but he's more of a well-rounded guy at this point. See what it says here. Cody has below a 100 weighted WRC plus outside of Yankee Stadium and 130 in Yankee Stadium. Okay. That's something that could, that could give you a little pause. But I love him as a fit because of the positional versatility. It gives them a safety net. If they were to like go ahead and sign Belly now, it would give them a little bit of safety net in there waiting out Pete, which I'm sure that's what the strategy is going to be, is just see how the market forms and decide if you want to top it or not, right? But Bellinger, I think they could maybe make a quick strike here. We'll see. I don't know. Again, there's going to be a lot of moves to be made. Bellinger's one. Tucker would be the other big one. And this was the first domino. You know, Brandon Nimmo no longer a Met. Marcus Semien is in. So I also think maybe if they did, and like again, don't aggregate this because I wasn't there, so I don't know this information firsthand. Only what I've heard. If they did have a little bit of a clubhouse regression last year in terms of the vibe, I think Semien actually brings that back up. He's a tremendous guy, tremendous teammate, tremendous spokesperson. I think he's really good at leading ball clubs. He did it in Oakland. He did it in Texas. I think there's value there. And not to say Nimmo didn't have that value, but you're bringing in another guy who's good in that way. So maybe that helps shake things up in a positive way. So maybe that's what they're thinking too. I don't know. And I guess we'll just go ahead and wait and see what the next moves are by Mr. David Stearns. Curious real quick, who's been the better player by WAR in their career? I feel like Semien got up a lot earlier, so this is probably unfair, but Brandon's sitting at 26 WAR. Marcus had almost 50 WAR, but he also got up here a lot earlier, 2013. So he beat Brandon up by like 3.5 seasons. And he's had higher highs, 8.4 WAR in Oakland, 7.1. He's had 3 years over 7 WAR. Also, another really durable guy. Not that Brandon wasn't. Brandon was. But look at these games played. 159, 162, 162, 161s. I think Met fans are going to like him a lot, is the bottom line. Obviously, if he doesn't play well off the gate, he'll get booed like everybody else. But I think overall Mets fans are going to like him a lot. I've heard nothing but great things about this guy. So, all right, we're going to get off this trade now. Finally. Yeah, and I know people are worried about the lockout too. This seems to be another thing that a lot of people have talked about. I just think you can't project it, so why think about it right now? It's funny though because Nimmo's is too, but both of their work ethics are insane. I heard Semien's is top tier, so that's great. Just another top tier veteran coming in. He fills a role. 2-time Gold Glover. He's won the World Series. We'll see how he works with the Mets' new hitting people, and we'll go from there. All right, we're done with this trade because basically all I've said in terms of analysis of it is let's wait and see. It's intriguing for sure. So, I don't know. We're going to have to see. I think Semien's off-field value is definitely going to play despite not being an elite level anymore. He still tries to play every day. He's known for being a great leader, etc. I just think also it comes down to how often he can pull fly balls to left field. That's all his power now. Other than that, he's more of a situational hitter. So also don't forget, Texas played really big. Texas plays really big. It probably zapped some of his pop a little bit. Let's just wait and see. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if nothing else, the Mets turned a 5-year contract into a 3-year contract, which gives them more flexibility down the road. So from that aspect of it, it's hard to hate it, right? I guess we'll just, we'll just wait and see. I think there's way more to evaluate as time goes on. All right, here we go. NL Central, all right? NL Central needs. We're going to start with the Brewers. 97-65 last year. So they crushed everybody. They had the best record in baseball. We all know that they ended up getting swept by the Dodgers. It's a very unique team, very unique situation. Here's the lineup, right? Well, here's the free agents. Brandon Woodruff ended up coming back on the qualifying offer at $22 million. Danny Jansen, Rhys Hoskins, Jose Quintana, Shelby Miller, who was hurt at the end of the year, and then Monty, who was there but not really there. All right, here's the lineup at the moment. Chorio, what a stud, and he's extended already. Terang, huge breakout last year. Contreras, one of the better catchers in the game. Yelich, he's been there forever. He was playing pretty dang well last year prior to him getting hurt and kind of looking lost in the postseason. Andrew Vaughn, I mean, he was simply put, a different player when he got there from the White Sox. He was basically a lost cause with the White Sox and became really, really good. Really, really good with the Brewers when he got over there. Frelick, kind of a do-everything type of guy. Not really pop, but do everything else. Durbin was a good pickup in the trade from the Yankees. Bowers, and then Joey Ortiz is still there. Isaac Collins, Blake Perkins have both been effective guys off the bench. This is a team that is going to beat you with paper cuts. I mean, offensively, I don't expect them to do a whole lot. They never really spend any money. If they do anything, it'll be a complimentary move. I do see a need for a little bit more pop in this lineup. They got exposed a bit in the postseason with having no real pop. They did beat the Cubs on the strength of some homers, but once they got into that Dodgers situation, I could see them going in for a little more pop. They do have some questions in my mind too. Is Andrew Vaughn this player? Like, is he good? We don't know. This has been one burst in the 4 years. So curious to see if Vaughn can keep it going. Where's Yelich? Let's go look at Yelich. Let's go look at Yelly a little bit. One of my favorite players that come around the last decade or so. He ended up hitting 264, 343, 452 for a 7095 OPS. So he's still hovering right around 800 OPS. He had a 900 OPS last year. It was only 270 at bats and an 817 the year before. So kind of bouncing back from that little lull that he had. Guy uses the whole field. This is an encouraging sign. I mean, Yelly's 33 now, going to be 34 next year. Still hitting Oppo tacos. So that's a good place to be. Always been one of his best attributes is that he has actual Oppo pop. For a guy who's not like a big, strong, muscular guy, it's always been a nice bonus. The defense has super regressed. Sprint speed's fine. So, you look at this team and you worry about, they're going to do the same stuff they always do. They're going to completely, mess around. They're going to go righties, lefties, young guys. They're going to shed all their veterans as soon as they can, get value out of them and kind of reset. But Yelich is the one guy who's been the constant. And of the guys that are in that lineup, there are a few that you have to worry, like, okay, are they going to drop off the cliff? Now, this actually looks pretty good looking at this table. I don't see a whole lot of metrics that have completely backed up to an untenable place. The expected on base has dropped off quite a bit, but like you look at the physical stuff, max EV is still up there, even though the overall EV has dropped. Sprint speed, it's dropped off a little, but it's still above average. Bat speed still above average. I don't know. I feel like this is a guy who's aging semi-gracefully, honestly. And he'll continue to be a big part of their lineup moving forward this year. That is Yelly. And then Vaughn was the other one that I wanted to worry about a little bit, because to me, Vaughn was a little bit of a quick burst, and it'll be interesting to see if he can keep it going. But this is an offense who I'm pretty sure, let's go look at the leaderboards for a second. Player team batting 2025. They rated weird in some weird categories. Here's barrel percentage. So barrels are basically balls that turn into extra base hits or homers. Them and Cleveland and the Reds, who all made the postseason. So all three of these teams that made the postseason, Padres as well, all at the very bottom of barrel percentage. So there's some teams that devise their entire offensive identity around barrel percentage. And the Brewers are like, we don't really care about that. Only 6.7% barrels. They literally hit, let's see here, in terms of total homers, they were in the bottom third, 166 homers. But it didn't really matter because that's not the game that they were playing. They're third highest in batting average, 258. They are second highest in on base, 332. And if I'm them, I'm looking a little bit more at this team right above them to the north, the Blue Jays, because the Blue Jays have a similar effect going on in terms of contact approach, but they have a little bit more pop than the Brewers. So if I'm the Brewers offensively, I'd be looking, where can I get some non-expensive or something I can stomach pop into this lineup, especially if you're worried a little bit about Vaughn maybe not being this player. So that's them offensively, right? Overall, though, they're a pretty easy team to trust. They seem to make it happen every year. So I can't completely look at this lineup and crap all over it, even though, is it exciting? I mean, it's kind of middle of the road, but having pitched against this type of team, you don't want to face this team either. So I think they're just going to continue what they're doing. Their system works, and maybe they try to inject a little bit more pop into it as they can. All right, pitching. Peralta, now that Woodruff took the deal and their payroll has to contend with a $22 million starter, do they flip Freddie Peralta? I think there's an argument to be made for yeah. Let me see where Freddie is in terms of contract. I think there's an argument to be made for Peralta. This is a suggestion in the chat that I just threw up there, even though I haven't even really read it yet. All right, Freddie Peralta. I mean, he just put up a 5.5 WAR season, 2.7, 2.7 ERA. He's only about to be. He's going to play next season at 30. Where's he at contractually? Yeah, so he's going to make $8 million on the team option this year. That is a very low price for a pitcher of his caliber, even though it's only 1 year. I do think they could extract a real piece back or a couple real pieces, young guys back, and I don't know if they'll pull the trigger or not because it's kind of hard to delete from a first-place team. And if you're looking at the trio of Peralta, Woodruff, and Mirasol, that's a pretty damn good place to start. So I'll be curious to see if they do it, and if they do it, what they get back for it. But that's an intriguing possibility, is trading Freddie Peralta. I don't know if they will, but it's intriguing. The rest of the lineup, the rest of the rotation, Woodruff, he's locked in. He has had some shoulder stuff flaring up the last few years. But overall, I mean, they offered him the contract, and they were probably okay with him taking it. He's been there the longest. He's the Nemo of the Brewers. Like, he's been there a heck of a long time. So they're going to continue with that marriage and see how that plays out. Mirasol's the phenom. We know he'll get his starts. Priester, I mean, you got to keep rolling with him. And then they have Chad Patrick. They also have a couple other dudes up and coming as well. I don't know. They do tend to be fine. I can't worry about their pitching too much. They tend to always have it, but usually it's really a bullpen thing. All right, so let's look at the bullpen. Uribe, stud. McGill, stud. Koenig, stud. Ashby, cheese. Mears, like, this is such a hard-throwing bullpen, and then they'll keep these last couple spots, you know, where Anderson, Rob Z, and DL Hall are in as kind of like a roster churn. But DL Hall is also another possibility in starting. There's also Tobias Myers. They're fine. They're going to be able to run back basically the same roster next year and feel pretty good about it. I guess the big question is what they do with Peralta, if they try to trade him and upgrade, or whether it's all just small moves. But overall, the Brewers, you know, you got to like where you are if you're the Brewers. Their system has proven to work time and time again. You got to love Pat Murphy at the top. Pat Murphy's been tremendous when winning back-to-back Manager of the Year awards since he took over the job from Council. They seem to have a lot of stability in that dugout. I mean, Murph was there for a while even before that. So this is a good place to be. They're doing good, but they're still pretty lean on payroll. They don't have any things that are screaming out for holy crap, we need to make a ton of moves. And the reason for that is because it's been proven that this system works, you know? Mixing and matching, staying athletic, staying good defensively, making contact, and having absolute velocity in the bullpen has worked. It's a tough place to play, but they also benefit from being in a division where I think they're just a little bit ahead of these other teams, a little bit in terms of the way they go about it. So anyway, I think that's it for the Brewers. I mean, I know that Logan Henderson is a guy that just got called up a little bit. He's going to influence some things as well. Let's see here. Garrett Mitchell, he was hurt pretty much the whole year. Brandon Lockridge, Tyler Black, Robert Gasser. Here's some of the other pitchers I was mentioning. Robert Gasser came over from the Padres. Tobias Myers. I mean, shit, he started a postseason game against us, or he came in bulk innings against us 2 years ago. So he's a part of their plan as well. Craig Yoho is a super, like, inside the ball, screwball type relief pitcher type guy. I think he has a little bit of like a slower airbender type pitch that Devin Williams had. So, you know, they're going to keep going. They're going to keep doing what they do. And until they fall flat on their face, I don't think anybody's going to fault the Brewers for what they're doing. Matt Arnold is the guy making the calls over there, and he's won a couple of Executives of the Year the last few years. So Brewers, I mean, look, they came in first place. They had the best record in baseball. If I were them, I wouldn't do a whole lot. So wouldn't expect much. All right, let's move on. Brewers are done. Let's move on to the Cardinals. All right, St. Louis Cardinals. This was my first team that I was drafted by originally, and they're going through a tough period right now. This is a very proud franchise who has a ton of championships. And they've fallen on a little bit of tough times the last few years, but they're going through a transition. John Mozeliak is now out. He has retired, and Chaim Bloom is in. Let's look at the record now. 78 and 84 last year. For a while there, they were kind of hanging on the periphery of the wild card race. Then they went ahead and traded a lot of their guys. You know, they traded away Helsley, traded away Maton. And I think that's more of what you're going to see this year. I think this is a reset year. I think Chaim comes in and he strips the roster of assets basically, and they start over in a way. I mean, not completely starting over, but they definitely they clean up a little bit of this payroll. And then they start setting their sights out in the future a little bit. All right, here are the free agents. Miles Michaelis, who's been there forever. I think he's been there for 6 years now, pitching a ton of innings for them. He's a free agent. We'll see what that happens there. Garrett Hampson, who's been bouncing around for a while now. John King and Jorge Alcala. So that's it. Four free agent relievers. And here is the lineup if it started today. Brendan Donovan, who I think if they were to, if they're going to start stripping guys, you know, he's got 4 years of service time. They're going to start stripping guys out that are headed towards free agency that have value. Brendan Donovan would be a big one. A lot of teams should be interested in Brendan Donovan. And why do I say that? Because he is he is now part of that new group of players with a certain skill set, which is that all-around player, that there just isn't a lot of these types of guys. That's why we like Stephen Kwan so much. That's why we like a lot of guys on the market. Not a lot. My point is there's not a lot of them, but we like guys who are all-around players that add a little bit more of a contact element to a lineup since a lot of teams have a lot of power. Brendan Donovan would be a perfect fit for any type of contender, especially a team that's a little bit more power-oriented. Here's the numbers from last year. 287, 353, 422, 775 OPS. He's been super consistent every year, basically been the same player all 3 years. 787, 759, 775 of the last 3. He's also can play all over the field. He's a pretty good defender. You know, he doesn't kill you on defense is my point. And then you look at the metrics. I mean, everything's great here. He's not a big bat speed guy, but in every other metric, he's above average or close to it. You know, even with the low bat speed, it tells you he barrels it up pretty consistently with the exit velo and barrel percentage being about league average despite the bat speed being below. Just a really good player, a winning player, and I think a lot of people might be in on this type of guy. I think he's a good fit for, let me think about this for a second. I don't hate him for the Yankees even. I know that they have Jazz and McMahon. Okay. Mets, they just got Semien, so then they would need somebody to play third, but it would only be if they punted on the rest of their dudes. But I think, in general, this guy's going to have a lot of suitors. Just a really good all-around player. So anyway, we start with Brendan Donovan at the top of the order. Then Ivan Herrera, who was pretty good last year. Burleson's a good hitter, doesn't really have much of a position. Wilson Contreras is now a first baseman. He's no longer catching anymore. They're kind of stuck with him, I think. Mason Wynn won the Gold Glove at short. He's on the upward trajectory. He's probably in the service time range with 2 years, 45 days, where they probably won't mess with that. Nootbaar, another guy right around that 4-year number. Service time is another guy who could get moved. Let's go look at Lars for a second. Really good dude. I went to dinner with him and Arenado in New York when they came to play us. Immediately gave up a home run to Nolan, and then like a week later, we were in St. Louis, gave up a home run to Nootbaar, and I'm just like, what the heck, man? I want to like you guys, and now you guys are clipping me for homers. Anyway, here's Lars. It's a little bit of a different type of profile than Donovan, which I just showed. Lars is more of a power profile. That's at least what the bat speed says. It's been inconsistent, but you go ahead and you look at the bat speed and the hard hit percentages, you would think at some point a 30 home run season could pop off. I know he's nowhere near that, only 14, 12, and 13 the last few years, but you look at the average exit velo, you look at the hard hit rate, you look at the bat speed. He's very good at not chasing. He's got a good eye at the plate. He does a lot of things well, and from an analytical perspective, you can see how this guy has some upside in there and could really pop off. It hasn't happened yet, but I'd be intrigued. I'd be intrigued if I was another team. The salary should be relatively low. You get control for a few years. I think he's another guy with some value out there that some teams will be intrigued on. I do think he's not necessarily the best outfielder, but I think he could be serviceable on the right ballpark, in the right outfield without like a huge amount of space to cover, because as you can see, the sprint speed's below average, and the arm value. I actually kind of like him. I would love him in like Fenway. I know his power's all pull side, which is not great, but defensively, I would like him in a spot like that. So I don't know. We'll see if maybe Nootbaar gets moved, but I would definitely expect Heim to be stripping this roster of assets. Then my buddy Nolan after that. So Nolan, look, if you trade him, which they probably are, you're taking cents on the dollar, but at the end of the day, you don't want to keep that going too long. And he's definitely declining physically. I think there might be another burst in there. I think there's some teams that maybe buy low and you get a surge of Nolan again for another year or two. But overall, there's no doubt that this marriage has kind of ended, and they're probably going to move on. I mean, he was traded last year. He just turned down the trade to Houston. So this has been kind of in the ether with the Cardinal Nation for a long time, that Nolan's probably not going to be there much longer, and I would expect him to be gone this offseason. So look, Donovan, Nootbaar, definitely Nolan. All possibilities to get moved. Wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys get moved. Even like a Burleson, he's got 3 years. I could see Heim moving him as well. So you're going to see a very different Cardinal team. They're going to go very young, and they're going to try to rebuild, I would think, pretty quickly. Nolan Gorman, who hasn't really necessarily seized anything yet, but has shown flashes. Let me look at Nolan Gorman. This was a big-time draft pick, big-time pop. But, yeah, I mean, 203 and 205 the last 2 years. And that's the tough thing. Look, 27 home runs in 23 when he hit 236 and had an 806 OPS. So it just comes down to this for some guys. Like, if they hit enough, like they put enough balls in play, like if you see that average get up to like 230, then guys with this much pop, like a Nolan Gorman, it really plays. But as soon as it gets lower, and it gets down to right around the Mendoza line, it's no longer tenable anymore, and that's the issue with Gorman a little bit. So curious what they do with him. They're definitely hoping to get a little bit more out of him. And I'm kind of wondering a little bit on the Cardinal player development side a little bit. They've had some big-time names come up over the past few years, including Gorman, including Jordan Walker. And those guys haven't really hit the ground running in the big leagues. Here's Jordan Walker. He's now at 2.044 years of service time. He was supposed to be the next Cardinal superstar, and he just hasn't been. He hasn't really improved at all since he's been in the big leagues. 2023, he hit 276 and 420 at-bats for a 787 OPS. You could look at that moment right there as a 21-year-old and say this guy's going to be big time. And then it's just super bizarre to see that he was so bad in 24 that they had to send him down. And he hit for a 619 OPS. And last year they were like, all right, we're going to give you another 396 plate appearances. And he hit for a 584 OPS. They haven't been able to get through to him. There hasn't been much improvement. And overall, he's just a very pitchable dude. You look at the whiff percentage, first percentile, K percentage, third percentile, chase percentage, 15th percentile. He doesn't square the ball up with regularity. It's a little bit of a stiff swing. Yeah, this is a tough pill to swallow. This is a guy that they called up and he thought he could be maybe, their type of Judge type of trajectory, like become the big bat in the middle of the order. And you see the bat speed, 99th percentile. There's tools, 84th percentile speed, 96th percentile arm strength, 99th percentile bat speed. Those are all tools that are going to get you on prospect lists, because if you let those tools play, the ceiling is so freaking high. But he's just not making contact. He's missing a lot. He's very pitchable. I mentioned his swing. I mean, look, he's literally first percentile in swing length. That is a big issue. When you're first percentile in swing length, let's go compare him to some other guys. All right, swing length at the very top. These are the longest swings in baseball. Caminero, Nolan, Baez, Walker, Adames, Judge, Harris, Paredes, Royce Lewis, Josh Bell. All these dudes have exceptional swing speeds, but it's very inconsistent whether these guys are good or not. And a lot of it comes down to chase rate, which he's first percentile in, or like bottom 5 percentile in. So then if you're going to have this long of a swing and you're already missing a lot of balls in the zone, you can't afford to chase out of the zone, which he's already doing. So if he could keep his swing the same and his approach the same, except not chase, he might be able to get up to that number, like the 230 average with the 27 home runs, 30 home runs, and we start to be accelerating. But as long as his strike zone judgment is as poor as it is, it's probably not going to get any better unless he were able to cut his swing length down. If you watch Jordan Walker hit, there's like a big, let me see if I can get his visual on his swing here real quick. He has like a big stiff move, and it's very laggy with kind of like the leg kind of lifts. It's just like a two-piece thing. Very stiff type of swing, all or nothing type of swing. Just an easy guy to mess with his timing, and either easy guy to throw him off, and on top of it, he'll chase. So once you get ahead of him, you don't have to throw him any strikes. Sometimes it's really that simple. Just too much chase. I think it's probably a little bit naive, even for myself, to think that he could just make his swing much shorter. But you see, he wants to pull. He's got a long swing, which means he has to get started early. And then he's got to catch that ball out front. But that just means he's got less time to make swing decisions. When you feel like you have to catch the ball out front all the time, that means you have to get it going early, which means you have less time to judge pitches and make good swing decisions. That's what we're dealing with Jordan Walker a little bit. And I don't know if that gets any better. I think you'd have to be on the inside to know, but it's also be tough to trade him now because you're trading him on 0% value. So basically, I say all that to say that we look through their entire offensive situation of the guys that are already in the big leagues, and you see a little bit of a complicated situation. Donovan could be moved. Burleson could maybe be moved. Newpark could be moved. Nolan probably will be moved. Gorman, they don't know what they have with him yet, but he's intriguing. Walker, they've gotten nothing out of him, but he's a big-time prospect. So those are all the offensive decisions they have to make right away of the guys that are on the roster. Now, if you look at their prospects coming up, Weatherholt is the big one. University of West Virginia University guy who's on the precipice of the big leagues. He's going to help their team. He's more of an all-around guy. And then they have some guys that are a little further away. So there's not a ton of hitting coming right away outside of Weatherholt. So I think they have a year or two to go ahead and kind of build their core before going back in on free agency, which is exactly what I think Heim will do. This is what Heim does. All right, what else we got here? Talking about Jordan Walker. Ground ball is likely due to the length of swing leading to deep contact point. Yeah, he has to catch the ball out front, and his attack angle is a little bit below average. So at the moment of truth, he is hitting more of the top of the ball, the middle of the ball, than the bottom third of the ball. So he's not able to use a lot of his pop in the air because he's not consistently getting it in the air, which is weird. It's almost like he gets to the moment of contact and there's a little bit of a rollover there, like he doesn't stay through it very well. So I think that's a little bit of the rub when you're looking at Jordan Walker's swing. Yeah, Herrera rakes. We can go look at Herrera if you want. Ivan Herrera has been a lot better in terms of This stuff. Look at that. This is what you want to see if you're a Cardinal fan. A guy come up, and between 24 and 25, he's banged. Over 800 OPS both years. So this is a positive. Now, he's a catcher who doesn't really play catcher often. They use him a little bit at DH. I don't know. Maybe he has value as well. So honestly, don't be surprised to see any of this, any moves made by Heim. This is kind of what Heim does. Now, talk for a second about Heim versus Mozeliak. Heim just got the job. He's been there now for 2 years, kind of working behind the scenes, knowing that John was going to retire. And Heim was the scapegoat in Boston. They pretty much brought him in, immediately were like, you need to trade Mookie Betts. He does that. I think ultimately the downfall of that was who he got in the trade. He gets Verdugo. They didn't really hit on that trade. So I think ultimately that was a big part of his legacy in Boston, although I feel like he came in with that mandate right away, and that's a little bit of a scapegoat. In 21 with the Red Sox, we did do quite well. And the whole time behind the scenes, he was doing a nice job in development and drafting, Marcelo Meyer, I believe Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell. So it's not like the Red Sox didn't benefit from having Chaim Bloom at the helm. They did. Ultimately, they made the move to Breslow, which maybe was a good move, maybe it wasn't. I guess time will tell. But my point is, Chaim didn't stink. Chaim was pretty good. And I think that's what the Cardinals are banking on a little bit, is that he's going to be the guy to kind of get the groundswell of talent going, and then they can go ahead and build, a winning program here in the next couple years. And this is also a little bit of a challenge in this situation. Like with Nolan, you're not going to get anything back that's great because it's a salary dump, basically. So you're not going to get a lot back for that. But that's why I think, given that they're making this move and they know they're probably not going to contend right away, I think that's what opens it up for even more of these pieces to potentially get moved. And there's a lot of evaluation that has gone on behind the scenes behind the last 2 years. That's interesting. All right, let's get into the pitching. Sonny Gray, another guy that could be moved. Matthew Liberatore, who at times has shown pretty well. Same with Palante. Michael McGreevy is a pretty solid looking young guy coming up. Kyle Leahy as well. So yeah, this was the hallmark of the Cardinals organization when I was there, was the starting pitching development. The amount of minor leaguers that were coming through that were effective was kind of staggering. Let's go ahead and list them off. This is ancient history now, but this is all in my era. Jaime Garcia, Lance Lynn, Michael Wacha, Trevor Rosenthal, Shelby Miller, Joe Kelly, Lance Lynn, Mitchell Boggs. There's more. That's the thing. Luke Weaver. Like, they always had guys. They always had guys. So, Tsunami, Carlos Martinez. Like, they had literally just an absolute ridiculous. I said Lance twice. Sorry. They had literally just a conveyor belt of starting pitchers coming through the system, and some of them ended up in the bullpen, but they were never really struggling in terms of finding young pitching talent. So, hold on. Brett, do you want to order something? I don't know if she wants to order something. Anyway, just a very interesting group. This is what's going to hold them back. This starting rotation is not going to be a division winning or a playoff starting rotation. So then they have to make their decision whether to trade Sonny. So I could see Sonny getting traded here, and maybe some more moves. But I do think this roster is going to get stripped down quite a bit. Here in the bullpen, it's all young guys. Riley O'Brien, Jojo Romero. He's got 5 years, so I could see him getting moved as well. Swanson, Fernandez, Roycroft, Rackett, Granillo, Graceffo. I mean, they punted everybody off their roster already, and this is a complete, probably more of a teardown this year. That's probably just the reality of it. All right, now story time real quick on the Cardinals. I was drafted by the Cardinals first round 2006, and at the moment I got there, I was brought into a organization in semi-turmoil, right? Walt Jocketty was the GM at the time, and there was a little bit of an internal power struggle between assistant GM John Mozeliak and farm director Jeff Luhnow, right? Jeff is the one who drafted me. He was in charge of the draft and of the minor leagues at the time, whereas John was the right-handed man the right-hand man, not right-handed, right-hand man of Walt Jocketty. There was a little bit of a struggle of who was going to be that next GM. It was pretty clear that Jocketty was going to move on pretty soon, which he ended up doing like a year later, ended up going to the Reds randomly, but he had been there a long time. Him and La Russa kind of had a thing going on. They were kind of a package deal in a way, and then he moves on, and Tony moves on. Matheny comes in underneath Mozeliak. Now, this was during the time period where, like I said, there was a little bit of turmoil in the organization. People that were Lunau guys, like Brent Strom, the pitching coach, they weren't allowed to deal with any players above AA. Like there was a huge disconnect between what the major league coaches wanted and what Jeff Lunau was trying to bring to the organization. So there was some vitriol there. And I felt it firsthand. I was a pitcher drafted by Jeff Lunau. By the time I got to AA and AAA and was scuffling a little bit, it was pretty clear like I wasn't in the plan because I wasn't a John Mozeliak guy, right? And I think ultimately that's how a lot of things played out. A lot of people that were Lunau guys, they got rid of him. A lot of people that were Mozeliak guys, they kept him. And the organization had been kind of divided as Jeff went on to Houston, and then he went and built that team into a world champion. Now, me personally, I'm glad to see John go in a way because he botched an injury situation with me very, very bad where I almost sued the team. And the reason why I didn't sue the team is because I didn't know what I would win in the judgment. So basically what happened was I was hitting in AA, first year in AA, first start in AA. And I went to swing at a changeup on an outside pitch and I sublexed my shoulder. And I didn't know what happened. It's the first time I ever hurt myself. So you can see my AA stats here. They are just atrocious. So I didn't know what happened. So I went to the trainers and I got a dose pack. Shoulder started feeling better. Came back to pitch. I was obviously awful the rest of that season until the very end of that season. And that was the first time that it was a little bit in jeopardy. Like, oh, I'm gonna be a bust here, right? Ended up getting healthy. Next year got sent to AAA anyway, even after this really stellar turn in the fall league. 6.17 ERA. I was freaking god-awful in the fall league. But pitched horrible. Anyway, went to Memphis regardless the next year, where I started off the year like 0-9, but was healthy the whole season. And at the end of this 09 season, I got put on the 40-man roster. So I get put on the 40-man roster at the end of 09 and getting ready to make my debut, hopefully in 2010, which I do. Kyle Loesch gets hurt. I get called up from Memphis. As you can see, I was pitching not bad in Memphis, 3.97, whatever. Get called up and don't pitch so well. Made 3 starts and 2 relief outings, which I got crushed in. Shoulder was barking, and I think it all came back to it all harkened back to that sublex shoulder from 2 years prior. But ultimately, I didn't really know how to like make my shoulder feel good. There was a lot of like me asking the trainers, but them not understanding what I was feeling, and really, this is where I dealt with my first batch of injury issues. Was from this scenario, 08 through 10. All right, so 2010 ends. I'm actually off the IL in September that year. I get reinstated from the injured list in September. I was able to rehab my shoulder enough to feel good. And I sat there the rest of September and didn't pitch 1 game in the big leagues. Which was interesting. I'm healthy. We're not in playoff contention. And yet they didn't put me in the entire time. So I'm sitting at home that off season in Florida. And all of a sudden, one day I get a text saying that I had been outrighted off of the major league roster. And I said, shit, this was shocking to me. I was like, man, like I was injured. How could I get outrighted when I was injured? Like something weird's going on here. I was injured, but then I was healthy. Like this is all a strange situation. And how did I not get claimed on waivers? Like I'm a first rounder. I'm showing a lot of stuff in the positive. Like I'm striking a lot of guys out in AAA. None of this really makes sense. So I go to find out that they put in my waiver claim that I was scheduled for surgery. And this is where the story gets a little crazy. 2010, during that season, right before I got taken off the roster, my shoulder starts barking. I go and get an MRI with the Cardinals. No doctor checked me. There was no evaluation. I simply went in the tube. They put a big ass needle in my shoulder, shot it full of dye, and they got a view of my shoulder. So I go back to my apartment. I'm sitting in my apartment. I get a call from Barry Weinberg, who was the head trainer at the time. He tells me, well, I have bad news for you, Otto. You have a torn labrum and you need season-ending shoulder surgery. So immediately I'm like, this is like horrible. I knew my shoulder was barking, but I'm still throwing 95 miles an hour. This makes no sense. Why am I getting shoulder surgery? So I immediately call my agent, my dad. I'm all upset. I think my career's over. They basically talk me off the ledge. They say, you know what? You need to go get a second opinion. Now, I hadn't really put it together in my mind yet that I never really had a first opinion. All I had was a radiologist's opinion. No doctor ever looked at me. There was no conversation. There was no real evaluation. It was just strictly, oh, my shoulder looks bad. You must need surgery. So we go get the second opinion. I fly to New York. I go see Dr. David Alchek, actually the Mets doctor at the time. We have a full evaluation. He looks at my MRI. He says, well, I think I would not recommend you for surgery. You should try to rehab and keep playing. I said, great, because really functionally there was nothing wrong with my shoulder. It was still working. It was just hurting a lot. So I was like, there's got to be a way to get things aligned a little bit differently, create some stability here, and then there wouldn't be a problem and we could keep moving forward. But by the time I go to get back onto the plane, I go and see an article that's pulled up on MLB.com and saying, former first rounder, top prospect Ottavino scheduled for season-ending shoulder surgery. So they already announced, the Cardinals already announced that I was getting shoulder surgery when nothing had been decided. So this was a big problem because now I came back to St. Louis and I said, the fuck I'm getting shoulder surgery. I'm going to rehab. And they said, we don't want you to rehab. We want you to get shoulder surgery. And I said, who's we? I never was evaluated by a doctor. The team doctor never saw me. Nobody ever looked at my shoulder. Why am I submitting to shoulder surgery without trying to rehab? Mozeliak was not happy with this outcome, so me and him had it out a little bit in the training room one day. And he told me, okay, next day, we're going to come and we're going to evaluate you. So I said, all right. So now I'm like really ready for battle. So the next day I come into the stadium and I go into the training room and they pull me into an office and it's myself, Mozeliak, the head trainer, and the team doctor, Dr. George Paletta. So they start doing the usual tests where basically they're like pushing down your arm and like trying to make you hurt. And he was being aggressive, Dr. Paletta. Like he was basically, I think, a little frustrated that this was even happening, that we were questioning their diagnosis and that they were about to look bad. They were about to have mud on their face because they never evaluated me and then they scheduled me for surgery anyway. So I basically told them, I'm going to rehab. I don't really care what you have to say. I'm not going to go under the knife. Like it's just not happening. They were furious with this decision. Basically, you don't know what you're doing. You have a 20% chance of pitching with your shoulder this way. You're damaged. You can't do this. And that's when I was like, screw you guys. I don't care what you say. I'm not getting surgery. I'm going to rehab anyway. I messed up the story a little bit because then I rehabbed the rest of that summer and I was feeling good enough to get activated on the IL in September. And that's when they didn't pitch me. So that whole time, I'm like, so you didn't pitch me for what reason? There's got to be a shady reason to not pitch me. And the shady reason was they were going to take me off the roster. So they did. They took me off the roster that offseason. They put a notation into my waiver claim that says I was scheduled for surgery and was going to be physically unable to pitch the next season. I found that out because my agent contacted some other teams about, hey, how come you didn't put a waiver claim in on Ottavino? Well, they said because he's injured. He's not going to play. So this was total bullshit. This was insane. What do you mean I'm not going to play? I'm fully healthy. I should have been claimed off waivers. You cannot allow them to sneak me through and off the 40-man roster when I'm fully healthy and then claim I'm not healthy. So that's when I went to the union. We talked to the lawyers. We thought about suing the team. Ultimately, we decided we weren't going to sue the team. What would it really do for me? They'd give me my 40-man spot back, but then they'd be a little bit sad. I mean, they'd be probably mad that they were on the hook. For putting me on the 40-man, and now they have a problem with me, and they probably just take me off the 40-man anyway or bury my career in some other fashion. So I decided to bite the bullet and kind of say, all right, I'll go back to the minor leagues the next year, not on the 40-man. And so instead of making 40-man money, I'm making $20K, $30K, or whatever the next season, which is 2011. So I go back to Memphis 2011 and end up pitching pretty well all of that season until we went on one trip in August where I gave up like 20 runs in 2 starts in between Colorado Springs and Reno, and that shot my ERA up to a 4.85. I did lead the league in strikeouts, did do a lot of things well, but if you remember, what else happened in 2011? Cardinals won the World Series. Did not get called up. They called like one other guy up. Maybe it was Lance Lynn. I ended up watching the entire playoffs of that season. All my buddies are going on to win the World Series. I do not win the World Series, but I'm thinking in my head, all right, well, I just showed I'm healthy at least. I showed I have value. This offseason will come. I'll go to the Rule 5 draft, and we'll go to another organization. We'll keep it moving. Wrong. Because then they ended up putting me back on the roster. So clearly I had enough value out there in the market that they were worried about losing me. They put me back on the roster. They bring me back to spring training in 2012. Now it's Matheny as the manager, Mozeliak as GM. I go ahead and pitch that entire spring training, pitched awfully well. One of my best spring trainings I ever had. I think it was the first time they tried me out of the bullpen. I almost made the club. They told me you don't make the club, but you're still part of the team. But I don't think Mozeliak ever had that as part of his plan. I was a Lunau guy, therefore I was the enemy. I immediately get DFA'd 2 days later, and then finally get claimed by the Rockies. And then the rest of the career is history. I go to the Rockies, end up being a big leaguer, and I pitched a long time. But I always felt like it was a little bit of a vendetta between Mozeliak and Lunau, where basically I was just kind of in the way. Like, oh, this isn't one of my guys, so I'm going to go ahead and move on from this guy. So I've never had any respect for John Mozeliak, and I say that very comfortably. And I'm happy. I'm happy that Chaim Bloom is now in there, and I think this is the rebirth of the Cardinals. I think Mo was, they won the World Series under Mo, so it's hard to completely criticize him. But in my situation, he tried to fuck my career up, and I don't appreciate that. And I was glad every time I went back and did well against his teams. And I was glad every time that his teams fell flat on their face. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you get what you ask for. So anyway, that's my whole story with John Mozeliak, and I'm happy he's gone and his red pants can go see you later. And Chaim Bloom's in, and I think they're in a much better place for that. And now the organization can reset with a really good talent evaluator, and they can go from there. So it's just a little bit of a story about me, and it doesn't really matter. But wanted to just throw that out there as finally I can go ahead and root for the Cardinals a little bit now that John Mozeliak is gone and Chaim is in, and I really like Chaim. So we're going to move forward, and we are going to go get into the Cubbies now, and they are an interesting team. Do you think this type of story happens around the league? So this is part of the thing that I've been saying. When you're a younger player, there's so much pressure on you and so much lack of understanding of how you're valued. And sometimes when you're a younger player, they put a lot of pressure on you to either play or to be moved or to move on, or to do what they do and what they say in terms of injuries. And it's like you have to take charge of your own career at some point. And really from that point forward, I was like, I'm in charge now. I'm not going to listen to what everybody has to say all the time. And actually, to give people some credit in this situation, there were some veterans on the Cardinals that are now in high places. Other people are managers and other places that gave me good advice along the way. Like, you need to take care of yourself. This Paletta guy loves to give surgeries. So, take care of your own career. And I have ever since. So that's really the advice I've been trying to give to everybody. It's like, sometimes the alignment of the organization and the players is not always in the same place because they're incentivized different ways. Organization is defined by that win-loss record, and I get it. Players' careers, though, are often defined by whether they're healthy or not. And I think oftentimes, it's up to the player to kind of defend themselves and take care of themselves in certain situations. And that's what I started doing after that, and it served me really well the rest of the way. Still had some mistakes along the way, but that was the first time where I was like, damn, this is a business and you will get stepped on really fast. Also, one more thing to point out was traded to the Diamondbacks during 2010. The trade was going to be for Kelly Johnson. And on the Diamondback end, AJ Hinch actually was like the GM or something, got fired, and then the trade blew up. Like, I was literally about to be traded mid-season 2010, ended up not getting traded. So many different things happened, over that time frame. But really, I'll never forget getting DFA'd by Mozeliak in the minor league clubhouse of the Cardinals right after getting cut from big league camp like a day prior. And him basically saying, we're going to DFA you. We're going to go ahead and take you off the roster, but we'd love to bring you back on a minor league deal for depth if you don't get claimed on waivers. And I looked him in the face and I said, there's no fucking chance I'm playing for this team anymore. And I took all my shit and I went and brought it over to where the Latins were, the guys that don't have a lot in the clubhouse, all my Cardinal stuff, all my big league Cardinal stuff, and I threw it on the floor and I said, have at it, fellas. And they all went for it. So, I don't know. That was a funny last day in the Cardinal organization. And it's funny because I have really close friends that went on to win the World Series and I was rooted for them, but it was always a little bittersweet for me because I couldn't be a part of it. And ultimately, I think I got caught up in politics a little bit and I never really got tried in the bullpen there. And there were some injuries, and I'm not saying it was everybody's fault, but the point is the marriage did not go very well there, and I'm glad to see that they've reset. All right, on to the Cubs. Cubs last year came in second place. They were in first place the majority of the year last year until the Brewers came and won, what was it, 12 in a row, and kind of took them over, kind of took it over. But the Cubs still went to the postseason, ended up playing the Brewers, and they lost in 5 games. This is a team who is much more power-oriented than the Brewers, and they ended up not being able to beat them in the postseason, but I do like where they're at going forward, especially offensively. So let's get into that for a second. Michael Busch, tremendous year last year, leadoff hitter. Nico Horner, tremendous ball player all around. Ian Happ won another Gold Glove. I think they're waiting for the offense to continue to progress, but he's still there. Seiya Suzuki, tremendous year last year. Ballesteros, big-time hitting prospect, catcher, DH type. He's in there now. Kelly had a career year last year. PCA had a career year. We all know he scuffled in the second half, but that's a building block all day. Dansby Swanson, steady as they come at shortstop. Of course, they'd like for him to hit a little bit more, but tremendous defender, tremendous leader, tremendous everything. And then Matt Shaw at third got his first taste of it. Some good, some bad, but you got to love this 1 through 9. This 1 through 9 is tremendous. I know they lost Kyle Tucker, and I don't think they're going to sign him back, but I have no problem with running this offense out there. There could be some complementary moves to be made. I don't love their bench. Amaya, I don't even know who Triantos is. Alcantara and Owen Cassie, who's a relatively exciting prospect, somewhat. But I like this offensive group. They had a good offense last year. They hit for a ton of pop. They did a lot of great things offensively, and I have no issue with pretty much anything in this lineup. Now, individually, of course, there's some stuff to pay attention to. PCA's chase rate, which we've gone over. PCA, that's the one part of his game that needs to clean up. And it doesn't have to go crazy. He just has to get it back under control somewhat. And if he can just start swinging at more strikes, I think you're looking at an elite top guy. Okay, there's some information on Triantos. Top infield prospect plus hit tool. So that's great. Brady, I can't go to lunch because I still have 2 more teams to go after this. So we got another 30 minutes here or so, and then we can go to lunch. All right. So Triantos, I guess we'll see. I guess he hasn't hit yet. That's what Dan's saying. But overall, you got to love this Cubs offense a little bit, right? Offense is not hurting them. All right, pitching staff. So this got a little interesting with Imanaga opting to take his qualifying offer. Now, the reporting was that they were stunned that he took it, and now they're basically paying him $32 million to pitch this year. And I think they wanted that flexibility to improve their staff, but they're going to have to live with it. Boyd, who was really good last year, Horton, who was outstanding last year, didn't get to impact the postseason, but he was outstanding as a rookie. Shota Imanaga, who I just mentioned, came back. I think his player development stuff, his offseason is going to be very important. Getting the velocity back, trying to find his fastball shape again. Maybe they try to build the arsenal a little bigger, but they're stuck with him either way. And overall, probably a good guy to be stuck with for 1 year, but we'll see. I do think it sucks a little bit that they're paying him so much money for this year. J-Mo pitched great for them both in the postseason and the regular season. Jameson Taillon, so that's solid. The thing that they're lacking with this team is that one exciting starter. You think back to the Cubs teams that won it all. There was Lester, Arrieta, Hendricks. Those 3. They need one of those guys. They need a true ace. Now, maybe Horton's headed that direction. Typically, they don't spend in this area. They're not a big velocity team. But I'd be curious to see if they have a bullet to shoot potentially in the pitching staff. They definitely never pay in the bullpen. Here's their current bullpen. Palencia, Maton, who it looks like they just signed to a 2-year deal. Porter Hodge, big sweeper guy. Ben Brown, who I do think they're probably done with in the rotation. He's a 2-pitch guy. Definitely a reliever type. Luke Little. Ethan Roberts. Assad is like a guy that they might give more starts to. I don't know, but he's another guy with some value. Jordan Wicks was a starter as well. They don't have that exciting guy though. Justin Steele. When's Justin Steele coming back? Coming back this year? He had surgery. Yeah, he'll come back this year. So this is a good boost to their rotation. Justin Steele coming back. He of the awkward fastball, awkward slider, weird slot, hides the ball well situation. So yeah, that's a good pick. I would like to see them get one more starter. And I know they're going to add depth in this relief core, but they are just allergic to multi-year deals for the most part. They don't seem to go big game hunting on the free agent market for relievers. So largely this is a run it back team. I would like to see them, if it were me, I'd be more interested in a high-end pitcher, whether it's starter or reliever, but I don't know that they will be. I think maybe they're not going to do a whole lot. I don't think they're going to do a whole lot. This is on Triantos. Not to the level they projected during the draft. Powerson's calling card plus bat to ball skills. Still learning to be selective. They have a big starting pitching prospect, I think. Well, let's see what it has for prospects here. I don't know. Let's go look at, let's just Google it. Cubs top prospects. Let's see what MILB.com is saying. Jackson Wiggins is the guy that they're referring to. 6'6", 225, 24 years old. Brandon Birdsell's another one, AAA guy. Yeah, Wiggins. Jackson Wiggins. Though Wiggins posted a 6.17 ERA in his first 2 college seasons at Arkansas, missed his third after Tommy John. They picked him anyway. Supplemental. Best pitching prospect in 2025. 96-97. Can reach triple digits. So there you go. There's a power arm. That's something that the Cubs have been missing quite a bit. They like his delivery. So I'd love to see him debut, and then we'll have a better idea. But it's nice that they have a guy with some ceiling here. That's good. And then who's this Brandon Birdsell? Top of the zone guy, 94 to 96 to 98. So another guy with some stuff as well. Really short arm action. So those are 2 guys that they're looking to impact their organization this year from a starting pitching standpoint. There's also a Connor Noland here, AAA, and Will Sanders. These guys also, this is more of a control guy, 90-92. Kitchen sink approach. And then who's Will Sanders? Will Sanders, 92-94 up to 97. South Carolina. This guy's got some upside as well. 6'6", big-time extension. So they have some guys. I've heard of this guy as well, right? Nazir Mule. This guy was like a 100-mile-an-hour guy, I believe. Spring training looks like 94, 96 up to 98. I think this is mostly a run-it-back team. I don't see a whole lot here. I mean, look, I think even with losing Tucker, they still feel good about their offense. Still going to be way above average offense, probably a top 5 offense. I know that's a big bat to lose. Maybe they can be a little bit opportunistic, but overall, I think for me, I'd like to see them go for a bigger pitcher. But I don't know if they will. I don't know what they're going to do. It's odd because they feel like they have a lot of money. The Cubs are printing it, but yet I feel like they've settled into a relatively mediocre spend given their revenue size. I saw some numbers that says that they don't spend nearly as much revenue as other teams percentage-wise. So I think the Cubs would be comfortable at a certain rate, but I haven't heard a lot of smoke of like they're desperate to bring him back, Tucker. So seems to be an interesting scenario. But right now, I mean, look, I think they're going to go into this year feeling like they have the better team than the Brewers anyway, and they'll be comfortable looking at the rest of this division and feeling good about it. If I were them, I'd push a little harder, but it's not my money. So I don't know what their situation will be. That's it for the Cubs. So again, not a whole lot there. All right, Pirates are the next team. Yes, this is how I feel a little bit for the Cubs fans. They could, sort of like the White Sox. They're in a situation where the Cardinals print their own money too. That should be noted. But I think outside of the Cardinals, like these markets are tiny. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Milwaukee. The Cubs could be financially whipping them all over the yard. So, all right. We are up to the Pirates. All right, Pirates. This is a make or break season for Ben Cherington, no doubt about it. They already fired Shelton last year. Now they have a new manager in there who's been there for a while. What's his face? Don Kelly, good dude. Supposed to be a great feel guy. All right, O'Neal Cruz, the ultimate StatCast champion, but real life, not quite as much of impact as you would expect. Seems to be checked out in center field a lot, but he's there. I mean, if they wanted to trade him, teams would be all over that. Triolo, who we noted was probably their one of their better players last year by value. Really good defender. Probably got screwed a little bit in the Gold Glove situation. I think for the utility, he's at third. Reynolds, who they paid a lot, did not play well last year. Horowitz was a big loss for them last year in that he was hurt most of the year in that trade from the Blue Jays. Nick Gonzalez, contact guy. Sawinski, they just got him back. I saw an ARB. He's like, at the bottom of this order is just weak. Joey Bart, Andy Rodriguez, Nick York. They've had a little bit of a overcrowded catcher situation with Bart, Andy Rodriguez, and Henry Davis, who was the first overall pick in the draft down here. The bottom line is this offense was just that bad last year. So regardless of the fact that they have a lot of pitching, if they're serious, and I've heard some talks about them being serious about contending this year, they got to do it with their batting. They got to improve their batting. By WOBA, they are the worst team in the league. Worse than the Guardians. Worst team in the league. According to The Athletic, the Pirates never actually made an offer to Naylor. All the skepticism at that report was valid. Yeah, that was reported that they were that they're going to spend more. They were in on Naylor. But this is a I'll believe it when I see it situation. Bob Nutting has not spent any money since he's been there. He's really hamstrung his GM over the years. Because at times they've had waves where they come through with some exciting stuff. Like when we played the Pirates 2 years ago, even before Skeens got called up, we faced Jared Jones. He looked incredible. Mitch Keller's really tough. We know about Ashcraft. We know about Bubba Chandler being up. So again, it's the hitting. You just cannot have a season with this type of hitting. 290 WOBA. It's not any better in the ex-WOBA category, right? Ex-WOBA, they are 5th. Guardians, Rockies, Reds, White Sox, Pirates. That's not the group of teams you want to be in. It's amazing the Guardians, find a way to do it. But anyway, that's the real issue with this team is the hitting. Let's go look at the pitching because this is where it's actually pretty exciting. Paul Skeens, arguably the best pitcher in the world. At least he's in the top 3, no doubt, with Skubal and Yamamoto in my mind. Mitch Keller, really good pitcher. He is under contract. So he's making some money, which is a little... Hi, baby.
I love you.
I love you too. We'll be out soon. I'm sorry. I know. You want to get pedicures?
Yes, and lunch.
And lunch. What do you want to do for lunch?
Cottage. I got myself upset about your high school story.
That was not a high school story.
When you didn't get the letters?
Oh, that was a whole nother story.
Yeah.
That's from my high school coach.
Wait till Adam tells you the story when he didn't know he got in, that all these
that was
teams
insane.
were looking at him because he hid the letters. And then I got upset. So now I'm upset.
I hear you, baby.
You should maybe go
it's all right.
lunch now.
All's well that ends well. All right. Paul Skeens, like I said, Mitch Keller, Ashcraft, Chandler. That's awesome, right? That's great. And then hopefully you get Jones back. That's tremendous. So this is the rub. Like they have the rotation that nobody wants to see, a rotation that can go out there and do damage throughout the league, certainly in the NL Central. But if you can't hit, you're not supporting it very well. And then here's the bullpen. Santana, Matson, Molodinsky, Lawrence, Nicholas, Sisk, Ramirez, Oviedo. They've always been the type to kind of mix and match to their bullpen the last few years. Santana was actually a great pickup for them. The fact that he's elevated all the way to closer is pretty cool. I saw they DFA'd Holderman, which was a guy that we traded over there from the Mets for Vogelback. Started off like gangbusters. I think he's had some injury issues. Lawrence was an interesting pickup from the Rockies. They're never going to spend any money on this, but I have to say overall they've done okay in this department. Oviedo is a little bit of a wild card too. This is a big, strong dude who was starting games for them, then had gotten an injury. He could be a big-time closer prospect for them. He also could get back into the rotation. I don't think they have a lot of pitching issues. I think it's just a question of what to do with it. Do you believe in your team's ability to contend? And if not, then you can reset your entire core here with a couple trades. All right, let's look at their prospect situation. I don't know why Paul Skeens is here, but Tamar Johnson's been relatively underwhelming in the minors. Bubba Chandler's the interesting one. Let's talk about Bubba for a second. Because I watched Bubba Chandler's debut and some of his starts thereafter, and overall, pretty good. .93 WAR, throws a lot of strikes. This is the big thing that I love, 3.2% walk rate. Also, literally averaging 99, so that's awesome. I did think that when I watched him, I don't know. I personally felt like he didn't have much command within the zone. It was very good at hitting the box, but I wouldn't say great at moving the ball around or changing speeds. I thought his contact could have been a little better, but he also did strike a lot of guys out. He's a guy I want to reserve judgment on a little bit, and I want to watch him this year and see what adjustments he makes as time goes on. One thing I love about him is the edge he pitches with and his confidence. I'd much rather be a confident guy coming up and into it than not confident. He's not timid in the slightest. This is the same guy who told Skeens, enjoy your opening day starts because I'm coming. That's a beautiful place to be from a confidence standpoint. But yeah, I mean, the mix is interesting. Four seam at 99, changeup at 91, slider at 90, curve at 85. The four seam, this is what I was talking about. As hard as he throws, people were on the four seam a little bit. So I think he's going to definitely have to change up his mix and his strategy a little bit. And if he does that, he might get that fastball value back up and he might be electric. But if he tries to pitch off his heater too much, it's interesting because as good as it seems, it didn't feel that way to the batters when I watched. So that's why I'm reserving judgment on him a little bit. And I'm not totally sure how the fastball plays yet, despite it being pretty good metrically. 17.3 verts above average. And obviously it's 99 miles an hour. So I reserve judgment on him a little bit. The big elephant in the room is what to do with Skeens. You know, Skeens is, by trade value, I would bet you could get pretty much whatever you want for this guy. Back-to-back years, under 2 ERA in his first two seasons, starts the All-Star game twice. This is not a guy traditionally you would ever think about moving. They've already said they're not moving him. They must think to themselves that his value will still be high after this year. And they can maybe make that decision after this year if they need to. And then somebody else can, deal with him through arbitration. But, God, it's such a waste of this guy's ability. 32 starts last year, 1.97 ERA at 187 2/3 is unbelievable. For him to go 10-10 is so sad. So this can only go one way. If they're going to contend this year, they have to add more offense or they have to naturally improve on offense. I think their starting pitching is enough. I think they can even piece together a representative enough bullpen. But at the end of the day, without this lineup improving, and there's no player in this lineup that they can't upgrade over. Even O'Neal Cruz, even Brian Reynolds. Those are good players, and they have value, but they can all be upgraded on. They had nobody who hit above average last year. So what are they going to do on the market? What are they going to do? How are they going to get more offense in there? I think that's the number one question. I remember a long time ago talking about roster construction with Justin Morneau. We were talking about how sometimes it can be a curse to be too top heavy in one of the three areas, whether that's pitching, defense, or hitting. If you rank like number one in pitching, but you're number like 30 in hitting, like that's not going to do you any good. You want to be like in the top 15 to top 10 in all three of those categories, and now you have a well-rounded club. They're just not well-rounded. And it's not like these guys don't have prospect pedigree. Gonzalez is a big prospect originally. Bart, Rodriguez, York, Horowitz, Cruz. Like these guys have prospect prospect pedigree. Davis, but they just haven't been able to hit at the big league level. So I'm wondering if maybe this is a philosophy thing, a preparation thing, because it's weird for none of them to break through. To me, that's very highly questionable, is that none of them have broken through and that they haven't really seen any improvement on offense. I know it's a tough ballpark to hit in, but it's just about improving their offense. How they're going to improve the offense, and they're going to take a swing at it this year. Because they like their pitching, and then we'll just see. Luckily, they are in a division that they probably feel pretty good about, but, man, it's been tough to be a Pirates fan over the years. I mean, they were great in that one little burst in the early teens. Russell Martin, A.J. Burnett, Garrett Cole, et cetera, Marte, Alvarez, Polanco, like McCutcheon, like that was a great team, but they haven't been there in a long time. There isn't a package out there that I'd feel happy for getting Skeens. That's the tough thing. Like, whatever team would go for Paul Skeens on a trade, they'd have to gut their team so hard, their prospects so hard, that I think it'd be tough to do it. It'd be tough to do it. So he's almost too valuable. He's almost too valuable. He would almost have to trade like another young stud back, like another guy with huge trade value back. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to move. Anyway, that's it on the Pirates. There's nothing really to do on the Pirates. They are what they are. They need more hitting. They need more hitting. That's the bottom line. I don't know how they're going to do it because they don't usually spend it, and that's going to be the biggest thing. All right, let's take a quick look at Reynolds before we move on, since we have this question. Do I think Brian Reynolds bounces back a bit? He was a league average on offense compared to his career. So this is a guy I've always had a lot of respect for. He's been a very big-time hitter. He ended up signing back with the Pirates. And look, his expected numbers aren't that bad, but yeah, the OPS has dropped down. He was close to an 800 the previous couple years, 720 last year, 8 less home runs, and a similar amount of at-bats, less hits, less on base. Let's see what's changed. Still a good hitter. Much more strikeouts. The whiff has started to go up. Hasn't been a good defender for a while. Honestly, everything looks fine. I would expect to bounce back. I feel good about Brian Reynolds bouncing back. Bat speed has actually improved. Swing length has been great the whole way, and it's weird that his squared up rate isn't there. I would expect this to improve. Something will improve here in squared up rate. And other than that, there's no real red flags. Yeah, maybe the Ks are a bit high, but I bet he does better than that this year. So I could see Reynolds bouncing back. That would go a long way. That would go a long way. So I think I mean, look, they're looking for offense, and this is a guy they're actually paying, so he needs to be good. So I would expect him to improve for sure. Just a good player all around. Switch hitting, solid dude. So, all right, that's it for the Pirates. Let's go on to the Reds. Reds did make the playoffs last year, as we know. They took that last spot from the Metros. They went 83-79, so 3 teams from this division made it. This is one of the advantages of playing in a division with some teams you can beat up on. Cardinals and Pirates last year a little bit. You know, you can get yourselves a few extra wins and creep into that wild card race. All right, Reds are an interesting team because I like what they have, but it also really hasn't taken that next step either. They were a team that everybody was super high on 2 years ago. Votto's last year, when Ellie was starting to come and you're starting to see all these young guys. Matt McLean was unbelievable that first year. You started to feel the flow, but their offense hasn't gotten there. Their offense has still been pretty bad. TJ Friedel, Noel V. Marte, who's been disappointing, no doubt. Ellie De La Cruz, who as good as he's been, has been disappointing. I saw it reported that he was playing through injury last year. But yeah, I'm definitely disappointing on offense. Spencer Steer. Sal Stewart, who I love a lot offensively, he's kind of just a DH, but you add him into the lineup, that's going to help moving forward. They have Gavin Lux, who they got from the Dodgers. He's a contact guy. Tyler Stevenson, also kind of a contact guy. He's been there forever. Key Brian Hayes was the interesting move. They need to get him to bounce back offensively at some point, because right now all his value is coming on defense. It's tremendous defensive value. One thing about them compared to the Pirates is these guys, this group has shown at least flashes of being good offensively. Even like down here, Christian Encarnacion Strand has shown flashes at times of being pretty good offensively. So Will Benson as well. So like, they're not going to do a lot here. They might make a small move, but overall, like, this is the group that they've been excited about the whole time. They wanted this group to hit. I could see them upgrading from Lux, maybe. How did Lux play last year? I think they were a little underwhelmed, right? Yeah, it looks like the lineup from the Futures game 5 years ago. Yeah, Luxy, 269, 724 OPS. It's interesting because this guy was like literally the #1 offensive prospect when he came up from in the Dodgers. And the reality is his big league production just hasn't matched that. Only 5 homers last year. So I could see them upgrading from this spot, potentially in left field. They had Lux DHing mostly, and this is probably why. -9 outs above average. So that's not great. Reds need to hit more homers. Playing in the Great American Small Park, they must not be 21st in homers. I think this is a good point. They play in a ballpark that is huge for home runs. I don't typically optimize for home runs in a lineup. I like a diverse lineup, but I think they could benefit from having a few more pop guys. I think Sal Stewart will largely fill that void. But yeah, they'd like to see more pop out of Marte, Spencer Steer. There was a question of who am I higher on, Ellie De La Cruz or O'Neill Cruz? I'm higher on Ellie. Let's go do a quick comparison of these two. Here's Ellie. Once he pops up, and then here's O'Neill. Now, for one thing, they've already moved O'Neill Cruz to the outfield, so he's no longer at shortstop anymore. But I'm a bit higher on Ellie. Here's the OPSs from the last 3 years. 750, 773, and 676 from O'Neill. And from Ellie, 710, 810, 776. So the offense is trending up-ish compared to O'Neill Cruz. He still plays the premier position. Also, in terms of stolen bases, he's a monster. 37 for him. O'Neill Cruz actually 38. So both of them are monsters stealing. That's great. Defensively, how was he -3 in range? That's wild. O'Neill. So above average in arm value now that he's playing center, which is good. Let's see here. So O'Neill Cruz, whiff, 3rd percentile, K, 2nd percentile. Where's Ellie in some of these metrics? So there's Chase squared up. Still getting his walks. Ellie, less walks. So, in a way, you look at O'Neill Cruz's batted ball profile and stuff, and you might like it more. I don't know. I've been higher on Ellie for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I've seen Ellie do more up close and personal. So maybe this is a bad. Maybe I'm a bad guy to ask. But I just see so much potential in this guy. I see like big time potential in this guy as a shortstop. You know. And I know he was hurt for a while last year, so playing through injury, still 776. I think he's higher. For me, he's higher up than O'Neill at the moment, but that's just my personal feeling. All right, back to the Reds. So that's the lineup. Unfortunately, they just don't have enough impact here, despite the names. A lot of guys haven't taken the leap. I think that's probably what they're looking for too. And ultimately, you look at like a couple of these teams that they spent low. They had a lot of top prospects. They got called up, but they haven't really like dominated. They haven't really developed the way they expected. I think oftentimes in this scenario, what you're looking at is, is our player development, system proper? Like, are we getting the most out of our guys, or are guys coming in with talent and they're not ever flourishing? So you're kind of looking at your systems a little bit more, and also at your development at the big league level. Like, you can't get to the big league level and just drown every time. You got to have some guys that get to the big league level, take a little step back, but then learn from it and shoot forward. We just haven't seen a ton of that from either of these teams, the Reds or the Pirates. But I think for the Reds, it's really hurt, because if they had any hitting at all, like if their hitting got a little bit better, they could be a hell of a team. All right, let's go look at their pitching. This is why I say it. This is a tremendous top 5 to look at on paper. Hunter Green, Andrew Abbott, all-star last year. Brady Singer, basically a solid middle of the rotation type of guy. Lodolo, big-time upside, nasty. And then Chase Burns, who we love, who's a big prospect, who they ended up using in the bullpen a little bit down the line. But it's amazing that they have these guys. This is a tremendous group. They can deal out of this group if they'd like to. They could deal out of this group from Hunter Green, Lodolo, Burns. I mean, they probably wouldn't deal Burns this early, but even Abbott. There's also Rhett Lauder, good call. Like, they're pretty set with their starting pitching in terms of the young guys up and coming. And this is part of the reason why I felt like they were going to be able to chase down the Mets last year a little bit. They were putting a good starter out there every day. They're not a complete team, but I do like what they have in their starting rotation. This is a good group. So we'll be curious to see if these guys continue to take the next step, or whether they trade from this group and try to improve in other areas, or how they decide to thread the needle here. It's a little tricky for Nick Kroll here, the GM. This is a tricky roster to navigate, because it's hard to tell where you are. I mean, you made the playoffs, but you feel like your ceiling's much higher, but you're also close to getting nothing for it. So it's tricky. I don't know much about Littell. Was Littell a free agent? Did I go through him? I did not. These are the free agents: Nick Martinez, Zach Littell, Austin Hayes, Miguel Andujar, Emilio Pagan, Barlow, Suter, Miley, Espinal, Candelario. Honestly, that's a lot of talent that got nuked off this roster. Martinez is a very useful pitcher. We'll see what happens with him. Littell, that was an interesting move. Hayes, Andujar bounced back and hit really well for them. Pagan was like basically closing. Barlow was fine. Suter was fine. So they must feel pretty good about their younger relief pitcher group here. Santillan, Ashcraft, Phillips, Maxwell. Those two guys in particular. Phillips and Maxwell have good stuff, and they're younger. Maul's been there. He's the lefty. And then they're going to probably churn this bottom three spots. Zuleta, Richardson, and Thompson. These are their two injuries, Aguiar and Williamson, both Tommy Johns. So who knows when they're coming back into the picture or how good they are anyway. But I do, it's just tough. Like sometimes you run into these teams where it's hard to know what they're really willing to do. Like I go look at the free agent market. I can think of a lot of ways for this team to upgrade if they're willing to spend money, but I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money. And if you're not going to spend a lot of money, you're probably looking for lateral moves, trades to increase your win total that don't hurt the bottom line financially. But I love the pitching rotation, the starters. That's the bright spot. And I like a lot of the names in this lineup, but I need to see Noelvi Marte take a step forward. I need to see Sal Stewart come into his own, whether it's this year or next. I need to see Steer turn it up a little bit. Key Bryan bring back some of his offensive potential. I think they can upgrade from Lux if they want to. McLean's an interesting one because he came out like gangbusters at the beginning. Here's Matt McLean. You look at that first year, 2023, 864 OPS. So he was crushing. And then he came back to earth, didn't play at all in 24, which probably hurt him a lot. And then last year, 643 OPS. Does have good defense, but they're looking to get him back into his figure his hitting back out. He looked to be on the way to be like one of their big three, one of their top three hitters in the lineup. And then he kind of fell back to earth last year with this season, which just makes no sense when you go look at 2023 and everything is so much better. So he'll be an interesting guy to follow this year because he's one of the guys that could change their upside as a team. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe the whole year away from baseball did not help, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. All right, back to the Reds for a second, and then we're almost done here. Schwarber's an interesting one. There's been talk about Schwarber potentially fitting with this team. He's from Cincinnati area. I have to say, he would make a huge impact on this team in this division. I guess you would play Sal Stewart at a position, first or maybe left field or something. But you put Kyle Schwarber in this lineup, changes everything. I would love Schwarber hitting right behind Ellie De La Cruz, because then it's just like you don't want to face Kyle Schwarber when you're thinking about a base runner. And also then you have to give more pitches to Ellie De La Cruz. I would love to see the impact of a Schwarber on this lineup. I know that's been floated. That would be a huge expenditure. Like he's going to get like 120 million or something. And you don't see them doing it a lot, but this could be the guy. So again, I think they could use one big bat, especially a power bat. Schwarber would be the ultimate pick. Let's see who else is available. Just straight bats. Straight up bats here. By projected WAR. Who fits this team that's just a bat? I don't think they're going to spend for Tucker, Bichette, Bregman, Belly. So Schwarber. Eugenio Suarez used to be there, but I don't think he necessarily fits. Pete. You could see Pete maybe. That could be a fallback option for Pete maybe, although I'd be hard pressed to see the Reds being the team to be the high bidder. But that's why I like Schwarber a lot, because he's local to the Cincy area, and that's why I think maybe this could work. Although he's going to have a lot of suitors as well. Other power guys, potentially Ozuna, O'Hearn. Bring back in Duhar maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Just from a power bat perspective, an Ozuna, O'Hearn. I like the lefty. I like the lefty nature with some of their other guys. If you go look at this lineup right now, I mean, Marte's a righty, Spears a righty, Steers a righty, Stewart's a righty, Keybrine's a righty, McLean's a righty. So there's only 3 lefties in here, even including De La Cruz at the moment. So I'd like to see a lefty bat. So I think Schwarber's the ultimate get, but I don't know if they'll be able to afford him or woo him. But he is a local to the Cincy area, just like my guy Mitch. So I don't know. Be curious to see what the guys from the Natty do, because that's what I think would be the biggest impact for them as a big offensive guy, particularly if they can bat him behind De La Cruz. That would change the whole dynamic of their lineup. I mean, I think they thought Will Benson might have been that guy. Where's Will Benson? Because for a little while, Will Benson felt like he was like a big time, like he was about to break out. Yeah, when he had the 863 OPS in 23, he was banging. It's only 287 at bats, but then, you know, they tried to give him the keys in 24. He struggled early. They took the keys away. Last year, he was a little better. I mean, if you look at his expected stats, they're pretty damn good. But he's been inconsistent, strikes out too much, swings and misses too much. Poor, you know, mediocre defensive player. He could be a guy that could still have upside for them. I'd be curious to see how Benson looks this year. I mean, they have so many intriguing guys. Part of it with this team is you're just going to have to get growth from within. You're going to have to get improvement from within. And I always get mad, not mad, but as a player, I used to always feel like, yeah, we can improve. Like, we can get better. We can do this. Like, don't judge me off of just last year and say, like, that's it. I'm automatically declining. Like, a lot of these guys are young. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to improve themselves. You know, and they get improvement from 2 or 3 guys in this lineup. Now you're looking at a definite contender with these other 2, Brewers and Cubs in this division. I think they can get into that mix if they get some just organic improvement from this group. But we'll see. And Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber would be sick. Ooh, David Stern speaking live to the press right now. I'm sure he's going to say, you know, it's always tough. It's always tough. But, you know, we feel like this helps our flexibility, blah, blah, blah. So we'll see. See what they say. All right, that is it for the Reds. I mentioned that I love their pitching. This is a guy I'm super fascinated to watch, Chase Burns, this year. Hopefully they give him a good runway in the rotation and we get out of the way. He's got a lot of strikeout potential. I mean, he struck out a ton of guys this year in a short stint. I know he gave up some runs, but Chase Burns, this was an exciting guy for them to draft. We'll just take a quick look at him real quick, and then we'll be done. So yeah, 4.57, but look at that, 67 punchies and 43 1/3. That's tremendous. It's a crazy fastball with the perceived cut to it and a nasty, devastating slider. Big time whiff rates. I think he's another guy who has to learn how to control his contact a little bit, continue to loop in more pitches. He's basically a 2-pitch pitcher now, but I'm excited to watch this guy develop. He's got big time ace potential. Let's just see it. Let's just see it. And this is my plan for the Reds. Yeah, growth from within and Kyle Schwarber. Thanks, Dano. Dan M. You guys are great. Anyway, that's probably it for today's stream. There's not really a whole lot else to see. We'll be back on Wednesday to do the AL West, which would be an interesting division as well. Maybe we'll finish up with one Sporkle. We'll hit one Sporkle real quick, one MLB, and then we'll be done, just for fun. I know my wife's waiting for me, but I hear that she's on the phone, so we can wait for her for a second. I like these minefields. Let's do an MLB photo minefield. I feel like I can dominate that. I know all these guys. This is super easy. All right, play quiz. All the pitchers without clicking a player from another position. Oh, come on. That's a joke. Pitcher, 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 pitcher. This guy must be a pitcher and pitcher. Bam, 100%. Super easy. That was a joke. That was literally so stupid. Why did I even do that one? I need something harder. Ooh, here we go. MLB players with most RBIs monthly, yearly, National League. This is like impossible. Oh my God. Okay, let's just try it anyway. Let's try Alonso. Whoop. Not in there. Schwarber. Bam. Let's try, wow, this is so crazy. Okay. Kemp. Otani. Ooh. Let's go Bush. No. Suzuki. No. I'm seeing Cubs. Oh, this is 2023. Sheesh. I don't even know, man. This is wild. This is like too much. This goes way back in time. So McGuire? Sosa? Sosa's in there. Griffey? What am I looking at in here? Arenado? Yeah. Gonzalez? Nope, no Carlos. Thought he would have been there for sure. Helton? Walker? Dixie Walker. Who's that? Yearly leaders who collected the most RBIs. And I don't know what this, honestly, I don't even know what this means. Gold. Schmidt. Yup. And then Bonds, obviously. I saw him in the chat. That was stupid. I should have had that. We need to skip these ads, too. These ads are making me crazy. All right. We need, like, Ryan Howard. Yep, that one's good. Ooh, Votto. No Votto? What about Pujols? Yeah, there's a Pujols. Oh, Tulowitzki. Oh, as soon as I put Tulo in, it counted it. That's so weird. August 2021. Rockies. Not Blackman? Story? Yeah, this is impossible, guys. I think I'm going to give up. I think I'm already giving up. What about Jones? No. Riley? Who you guys got? Olsen? Yelich? Ah, Yelich was in there. Posey? Nope. Belt? Nope. Now I'm just guessing. I got no idea. Holiday? Yeah, Holiday was in there. Stanton. Good call. Ozuna? Yeah, Marcelo Ozuna. I had a feeling. We were just talking about him too. Ooh, Padres in 12. That's who's the third baseman for the Padres in 12? He later went to the Yankees. Switch hitter. Headley. Thank you, chat. Chase Headley. I knew he was in there. May 2012. Cardinals. Is this Craig? Freeze? No. Let's try Robinson. Yeah, Jackie. Maybe Frank. Did I already do Piazza? Yeah, Beltron. Okay, now we're doing better. Hack Wilson. Somebody said Stearns is a robot. Is that how he's talking? I wonder. Atlanta 19? You guys have any idea? I'm completely baffled by this one a little bit. Cincinnati in 19? Colorado in 21? How's that not Story? I don't know. All right, what other beasts am I forgetting? Freeman. Yeah, Freeman's a good one. Freddie Freeman. Great call. Great call, chat. I think I tried Chipper Jones. Yeah, he's out. Mamma mia, mamma mia. Is there a Harper in here? Or a Soto in here? No. Ruth never played in the NL, so I'll put him in, but he's not in. All right, what about Schmidt? Yeah, Mike Schmidt was in there. Strawberry? I spelled that wrong. Yeah, still spelling it wrong. All right, I think I'm done. I'm going to quit. We're giving up. Here are the answers. I thought I put Bellinger. Wow, Aristides Aquino? Are you kidding me? CJ Crone, Hunter Pence, Jay Bruce. I mean, eventually I would have got some of these. Thought I put Bagwell in. Bichette, Galarraga, Plantier. All right, it was fun. It was fun. It was stupid. Forgot about Aquino. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. You guys have been awesome. I appreciate you guys a lot for hanging. That was a little bit of Met trade talk, which I guess we have to wait and see. Very interesting to see what else they do. And then we went through the NL Central. We'll be back with AL West on Wednesday. No guests this week. So Wednesday, NL West, Friday. Wednesday, AL West, Friday, NL West. And then we'll move on to more guests. We'll move on to more Hall of Fame talk, other talk. We'll react to things that happen, and we'll go from there. All right. Peace out, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.